A 13-year-old boy stands trembling before one of America's most compassionate judges, and what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. But before we reveal what this young man said that made even the bailiff cry, you need to hear the devastating mistake that brought him here. Drop a comment right now telling us what you think justice should look like for kids who make terrible choices. Marcus Henderson was just 13 years old when he walked into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom on a cold Tuesday morning in November. His hands were shaking so badly he had to clasp them together. The Nike hoodie he wore was 2 sizes too big, probably a hand-me-down from an older brother. His mother sat in the gallery behind him, her face buried in her hands, shoulders trembling with quiet sobs. This wasn't just another parking ticket case. This wasn't a minor traffic violation. What Marcus had done would change multiple lives forever, including his own. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in second chances, because what you're about to witness is why Judge Caprio's courtroom has become a beacon of hope for millions. The courtroom was packed that morning. Word had spread through Providence, Rhode Island, that something significant was happening. Local news cameras were positioned in the back. The wooden benches creaked under the weight of concerned community members, teachers from Marcus's school, and 3 people whose lives had been shattered by one reckless decision made by a child who should have been worried about algebra homework, not facing a judge. Judge Caprio entered the courtroom with his characteristic warm demeanor, but there was something different in his eyes that day, something heavier. He'd reviewed the case file the night before. He'd read every witness statement, examined every piece of evidence, and spent hours contemplating what justice truly meant when the defendant was barely a teenager. Case number 2847 JV, the clerk announced. The State versus Marcus Henderson. Quote, Marcus stood up so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. The sound echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. Every eye was on him. This young boy with cornrows in his hair and tears already streaming down his face before a single word had been spoken. Like this video right now if you think children deserve justice that heals, not just punishes. Son, please come forward, Judge Caprio said gently. Marcus walked to the defendant's table on legs that barely seemed able to support him. His public defender, a woman named Sarah Chen who had fought hard to keep this case in juvenile court, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, but nothing could stop the trembling that had taken over his entire body. Judge Caprio looked at the young man before him for a long moment. Then he glanced at the 3 people sitting in the front row of the gallery. 52-year-old Janet Morrison sat in a wheelchair, her leg in a cast that extended from her ankle to her hip. Beside her was her daughter, 16-year-old Emily Morrison, who had a surgical scar visible on her forehead, disappearing into her hairline. And then there was 8-year-old Christopher Davis, holding his grandmother's hand, his right arm still in a sling 12 weeks after the incident. Share this video with someone who works with troubled youth, because they need to see what happens next. Marcus, Judge Caprio began, his voice carrying the weight of decades on the bench. Do you understand why you're here today? Quote, the boy's voice came out as barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. I need you to speak up, son. Everyone in this courtroom deserves to hear your voice. Marcus swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. When he spoke again, his voice cracked with emotion. Yes, Your Honor, I understand why I'm here. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. He picked up a document from his desk, though he didn't really need to read it. He'd memorized every terrible detail. On September 15th of this year, you took your mother's Honda Accord without permission. You didn't have a license. You'd never had a single driving lesson. Is that correct? Quote, yes, Your Honor. Tears were falling freely now, dripping off Marcus's chin onto the defendant's table. And you picked up 2 friends, Devin Wright and Jamal Stevens, both also 13 years old. You drove to the east side, running 2 red lights on the way, reaching speeds estimated by witnesses at nearly 60 miles per hour in a residential zone where the speed limit is 25. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Janet Morrison gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Her daughter Emily reached over and took her mother's hand. Yes, Your Honor, Marcus managed to say through his sobs. But here's what the initial police report didn't capture. Here's what makes this case so much more complex than it first appeared. Drop a comment telling us if you've ever made a mistake as a kid that changed your life forever. Judge Caprio continued, his voice remaining calm but carrying unmistakable gravity. At the intersection of Hope Street and Angel Street, you ran another red light. You struck Mrs. Morrison's Toyota Camry on the driver's side, spinning her vehicle completely around. Her daughter Emily, who was in the passenger seat, hit her head on the side window. The impact was so severe that your vehicle continued forward another 30 feet before striking 8-year-old Christopher Davis, who was riding his bicycle home from school. Quote, a gasp went through the gallery, even though everyone there already knew these facts. Hearing them spoken aloud in the judge's measured tone made them feel fresh, immediate, unbearable. Marcus's knees buckled slightly. His lawyer steadied him. Christopher was thrown 15 feet from his bicycle. He suffered a compound fracture of his right arm, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion that kept him in the hospital for 6 days. Mrs. Morrison sustained a shattered femur, requiring surgery and months of physical therapy. Emily Morrison needed 12 stitches for the laceration on her forehead and suffered a traumatic brain injury that still affects her memory and concentration. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, hit that button now, because we bring you stories of real justice and real redemption that you won't find anywhere else. Judge Caprio set down the document. The courtroom remained in profound silence. Your 2 passengers, Devin and Jamal, sustained minor injuries. Cuts, bruises, but they were released from the hospital the same day. You walked away with barely a scratch. But 3 other people nearly lost their lives because of your choice that day. Marcus was sobbing openly now, his whole body shaking with the force of it. His mother in the gallery had her face completely covered, her own shoulders heaving. Several people in the courtroom were wiping their eyes. Marcus, the judge said more softly, look at me, son. The boy raised his head slowly. His eyes were red and swollen. Snot ran from his nose. He looked exactly like what he was. A terrified child facing the consequences of a catastrophic mistake. I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be completely honest. Can you do that? Quote, yes, Your Honor, Marcus whispered. Why did you take that car? Quote, the question hung in the air. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The explanation, the reason, the thing that might make sense of the senseless. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. When the words finally came, they were so quiet, Judge Caprio had to lean forward to hear them. My little sister needed medicine. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Caprio raised his hand for silence. Explain that to me, Marcus. Take your time. Tell me the whole story. And here's where everything changes. Here's where the simple story of a reckless kid becomes something infinitely more complicated. Like this video if you believe context matters in justice. Marcus took a shuddering breath. My sister Destiny, she's 7 years old. She has asthma real bad. That morning before school, she had an attack. A bad one. She couldn't breathe right and she was turning blue, and my mama was panicking because we were out of her rescue inhaler. His lawyer handed him a tissue. He wiped his face, but the tears kept coming. My mama called 911, but they said the ambulance would take 20 minutes because of some accident on the highway. 20 minutes. Destiny was turning blue, Your Honor. She was making this sound like she was drowning. I couldn't just watch her die. Several people in the gallery were crying now. Janet Morrison, the woman in the wheelchair, had tears streaming down her face, even as she held her daughter's hand. My mama's friend Shanice lives like 3 miles away, and she has asthma too, so she always has extra inhalers. My mama was on the phone with 911, trying to keep Destiny calm, trying to help her breathe. She wasn't thinking straight. None of us were. I grabbed her keys off the counter and I ran. Judge Caprio's face remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed his emotion. You were trying to save your sister's life. Yes, Your Honor. I know it was wrong. I know I should have waited for the ambulance or done something different, but I just kept thinking, what if 20 minutes was too long? What if my baby sister died because I didn't do nothing? Quote, share this video right now because this story isn't what you thought it was. So you got in the car? Judge Caprio prompted gently. Yes, Your Honor. I've watched my mama drive 1,000,000 times. I thought I could do it. I called Devin and Jamal because I was scared to go alone and they only live 1 block over. I picked them up and I was driving to Miss Shanice's house and I was going fast because every second mattered and I ran those lights because I was so scared and I wasn't paying attention and then… His voice broke completely. For several long moments he couldn't speak at all, just stood there shaking and crying. Then you hit Mrs. Morrison's car, the judge said quietly. I didn't see her, Marcus sobbed. I swear to God, Your Honor, I didn't see her car. I didn't see nothing but the road ahead. And then there was this horrible crashing sound and glass breaking, and I kept going because my car was still moving, and then I felt another bump and I didn't even know what it was until I stopped the car and got out and saw. He couldn't continue. He bent over at the waist, hands on his knees, making sounds like he might vomit. You saw Christopher, Judge Caprio said. He was so little, Marcus gasped, so little, just lying there on the ground. And his bicycle was all twisted up, and he was crying for his mama. And I knew what I'd done. I knew I'd hurt people trying to save my sister, and I didn't know if I'd just made everything worse. The prosecutor, a stern-faced man named Daniel Roberts, stood up. Your Honor, if I may, the defendant did remain at the scene. He immediately called 911. He was cooperative with responding officers. These facts are not in dispute. Judge Caprio nodded. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Marcus, did you get the inhaler to your sister? Quote, hit the subscribe button if this story is affecting you the way it's affecting everyone in that courtroom. Marcus shook his head. No, Your Honor. By the time the police let me call my mama from the scene, she told me the ambulance had gotten there and they were taking Destiny to the hospital. She's okay. The doctor said she would have been okay, even if the ambulance took the full 20 minutes. She wasn't gonna die. I almost killed people for nothing. You didn't know that at the time, Judge Caprio observed. But I should have waited. I should have trusted the ambulance. I should have anything but what I did. I hurt Mrs. Morrison and Emily and Christopher, and it's my fault. It's all my fault. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned his attention to the 3 victims sitting in the front row. Mrs. Morrison, would you like to address the court? Quote, Janet Morrison used the arms of her wheelchair to adjust her position. Her daughter Emily helped her mother move into a position where she could see the judge clearly. When Janet spoke, her voice was strong despite the tears on her cheeks. Your Honor, I'm not going to lie to you. The past 3 months have been the hardest of my life. I've had 2 surgeries on my leg. The doctors say I'll walk again, but I might always have a limp. I might always have pain. I've missed months of work. My daughter still has nightmares about the accident. We've both been in therapy. Marcus's sobs got louder. His lawyer kept her hand on his shoulder. But, Janet continued, and that single word silenced the courtroom. I also have a 13-year-old son. His name is Marcus too, funny enough. Same age as this young man right here. And if my Marcus thought his little sister was dying, if he thought he had to do something in that moment or she'd die, I don't know what he would have done. I'd like to think he'd make a better choice, but fear makes us do things we'd never do otherwise. Drop a comment right now about whether you think what comes next is justice or mercy. Emily Morrison spoke up then, her young voice clear and firm. Your Honor, can I say something too? Quote. Judge Caprio smiled gently at her. Of course, Emily. I'm 16. I just got my driver's license 3 months before the accident. I'm still learning too. I made a mistake last week where I almost hit another car because I was changing the radio station and not paying attention. My mom had to grab the wheel. If I'd hit that car, it would have been my fault, but it would have been because I was stupid, not because I was trying to save someone's life. Marcus was trying to save his sister. That has to count for something. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom now. Judge Caprio cleared his throat and turned to Christopher Davis's grandmother, who held the 8-year-old close. Mrs. Davis, you have the floor if you'd like it. Quote. The elderly woman stood up slowly, keeping one hand on Christopher's shoulder. Your Honor, my grandson spent 6 days in the hospital. He missed a month of school. He's afraid of cars now. He has nightmares. He cries sometimes for no reason because his arm hurts or because he remembers being on the ground not knowing what happened. Marcus made a sound like a wounded animal. But, Mrs. Davis continued, her voice shaking but determined. I also know what it's like to make desperate choices. Christopher's mama, my daughter, is in prison right now for selling drugs. You know why she was selling drugs? To pay for her mama's cancer treatment. That's me. I had cancer. No insurance. We were drowning in bills. She made a terrible choice to try to help her family, just like this boy made a terrible choice trying to help his sister. Quote, she looked directly at Marcus then. Young man, look at me. Marcus raised his head, his face a mess of tears and snot and anguish. I forgive you, Mrs. Davis said simply. And Christopher, tell the judge what you told me this morning. If you're not crying right now, you're not human. Like this video if Judge Caprio's courtroom is the only place you see real humanity anymore. The 8-year-old boy looked tiny, standing next to his grandmother. His voice was high and soft. I told Grandma that I don't think Marcus wanted to hurt me. I think he was scared about his sister. When my mama got arrested, I was really scared too. I understand being scared. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. When he put them back on, he looked at Marcus with an expression that was part judge, part father, part fellow human being, trying to navigate impossible moral terrain. Marcus Henderson, he said formally, you stand before this court having pleaded guilty to 3 counts of reckless driving, resulting in serious bodily injury, 1 count of operating a vehicle without a license, and 1 count of leaving the scene of an accident before emergency services arrived. Your Honor, Marcus's lawyer interjected quickly, my client didn't leave the scene. He moved his vehicle to the side of the road to avoid blocking traffic, and then immediately returned to the victims and called 911. The prosecution has agreed this doesn't constitute leaving the scene. Thank you, Ms. Chen. Let me rephrase. Having pleaded guilty to 3 counts of reckless driving resulting in serious bodily injury and 1 count of operating a vehicle without a license, you face the possibility of juvenile detention until your 21st birthday, thousands of dollars in restitution, and a permanent criminal record that could affect your entire future. The words hit like physical blows. Marcus swayed on his feet. His mother let out a sound like a wounded animal from the gallery. However, Judge Caprio continued, and the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. This court must consider not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of justice. We must consider your age, your intent, your actions after the incident, and the voices of your victims. Share this video with anyone who's lost faith in the justice system. Judge Caprio stood up from his bench and walked around to the front. This was unprecedented. Judges didn't leave the bench during proceedings. But Frank Caprio had never been a typical judge. He stood just a few feet from Marcus, looking at the terrified child before him. Son, what you did was wrong. Monumentally, catastrophically wrong. 3 people were seriously injured because of your choices. Your good intentions don't erase that harm. But intentions matter. Context matters. Your age matters. The fact that you stayed at the scene matters. The fact that you immediately took responsibility matters. And the remarkable grace shown by your victims matters tremendously. Marcus was shaking so hard he looked like he might collapse. If I send you to juvenile detention, what will that accomplish? Will it heal Mrs. Morrison's leg? Will it erase Emily's nightmares? Will it make Christopher's arm heal faster? Quote, no, Your Honor, Marcus whispered. Will it prevent you from ever making another desperate, panicked decision in a moment of crisis? Quote, I promise I'll never do anything like this again. Never. I swear on my sister's life. I believe you, Judge Caprio said, and the simple sincerity in those 3 words made half the courtroom break down completely. I believe you've learned a lesson that will stay with you for the rest of your life. I believe you will carry the weight of this day forever. I believe you understand the fragility of life and the consequences of split-second decisions in a way most 13-year-olds never have to understand. He paused, looking at the victims, then back at Marcus. But I also believe in second chances. I believe in redemption. I believe that a young man who was trying to save his sister's life, who made a terrible choice in a moment of panic, deserves an opportunity to make amends and to become the person he's meant to be. Drop a comment right now predicting what sentence he's about to give. Therefore, here is my ruling. You will not serve time in juvenile detention. Instead, you will be sentenced to 3 years of supervised probation with the following conditions. Marcus's legs actually did give out then. His lawyer and the bailiff both grabbed him, holding him up between them. First, you will complete 500 hours of community service. Half of those hours will be completed at the rehabilitation center, where Mrs. Morrison is receiving physical therapy. You will volunteer there. You will see firsthand the long road to recovery, your victim's face. You will help other people heal even as you heal yourself. Janet Morrison was nodding, tears streaming down her face. Second, you will complete a certified defensive driving course, and you will not apply for your driver's license until you are 18 years old. You will earn that privilege, not rush into it. Quote, "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus managed to say. Third, you will maintain at least a B average in all your classes. Ms. Chen has provided me with your school records. You're a bright young man. Before this incident, you were a straight A student. You will return to being that student. You will graduate high school. You will go to college if that's your path, or learn a trade if that's your path, but you will make something meaningful of your life. Hit that subscribe button because Judge Caprio is showing us what justice with wisdom looks like. Fourth, you will write a letter of apology to each of your victims. Not a generic letter. Specific, detailed letters that show you understand the individual impact your actions had on each of them. You will write these letters by hand. You will take your time. You will mean every word. Yes, Your Honor, I promise. Fifth, and this is perhaps most important, you will speak to other young people about your experience. You will visit schools. You will tell your story. You will help other kids understand that good intentions don't justify dangerous choices, that there are always alternatives, even when you can't see them in the moment, that split-second decisions can change lives forever. Marcus was crying, but also nodding vigorously. I'll do all of it, Your Honor, I promise. I'll do whatever you want. Thank you so much. Quote, Judge Caprio held up his hand. I'm not finished. There's one more condition, and this one is non-negotiable. The courtroom tensed again. What more could there be? You will meet with your victims monthly for the next year. Mrs. Morrison, Emily, Christopher, and Mrs. Davis have all agreed to this, if you agree. You will sit down with them. You will hear about their recovery. You will answer their questions. You will maintain accountability not just to this court, but to the people you hurt. Marcus looked at Janet Morrison in her wheelchair, at Emily with her scar, at little Christopher with his arm in a sling. The idea of facing them monthly, of seeing the ongoing impact of his actions, seemed to terrify him even more than the idea of juvenile detention had. But he nodded. Yes, Your Honor, I agree. If they're willing to do that, I'm willing. I want to. I need to. Janet Morrison wheeled herself forward slightly. Your Honor, may I speak once more? Quote, Of course. Like this video if you believe in the power of forgiveness, Marcus. Janet said, addressing the boy directly for the first time. I want you to know something. I'm not doing this to torture you. I'm doing this because I believe you deserve a chance to make this right. My son Marcus, he's been in trouble at school lately. Fighting, disrespecting teachers, failing classes. I've been so worried about him. And sitting here today, listening to you, seeing your remorse, I keep thinking that maybe if you can turn your life around, if you can use this horrible experience to become a better person, maybe my Marcus can see that it's possible too. Quote, She wiped her eyes. Maybe you meeting with us isn't just about you making amends. Maybe it's about all of us healing together. Maybe it's about my family seeing that people can change. That mistakes, even terrible ones, don't have to define us forever. Marcus was openly weeping now, but he managed to speak through his tears. Mrs. Morrison, I promise I won't waste this chance. I promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your forgiveness. All of you. I'll never forget what I did. Never. But I'll try every single day to be someone who makes something good come from something so bad. Judge Caprio returned to his bench. He picked up his gavel, and the sound of it hitting the block seemed to echo with finality. Marcus Henderson, by the power vested in me by the state of Rhode Island, I hereby sentence you to the terms we've discussed. 3 years supervised probation, 500 hours community service, defensive driving course, maintain good grades, write letters of apology, speak to youth groups, and monthly meetings with your victims. This is your second chance. Don't waste it." Quote. The gavel came down again. "Thank you, Your Honor," Marcus said, his voice stronger now. "Thank you. I won't waste it. I promise." But that's not where this story ends. What happened next proves that real justice creates ripples that extend far beyond a single courtroom moment. Share this video because people need to see the rest of this story. The courtroom erupted in applause. It was unprecedented, probably against protocol, but no one tried to stop it. People were standing, clapping, crying, hugging each other. Marcus's mother rushed forward and threw her arms around her son, both of them sobbing into each other's shoulders. Mrs. Morrison was clapping from her wheelchair, Emily beside her with tears running down her face. Even little Christopher was clapping, his one good hand hitting against his cast to make a hollow thumping sound. Judge Caprio watched it all with satisfaction and something that looked like hope. He'd been a judge for over 30 years. He'd seen thousands of cases, sentenced thousands of people, but this moment would stay with him forever. Ms. Chen, Marcus's public defender, shook the boy's hand formally. "You did good today, Marcus. You were honest. You took responsibility. You showed them who you really are. Now comes the hard part, actually doing the work. Proving you meant everything you said." Quote, "I did mean it," Marcus insisted. "I mean it more than anything I've ever said in my life." 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up for his first day volunteering at the Coastal Rehabilitation Center, where Janet Morrison was receiving physical therapy. He arrived 30 minutes early, dressed in clean clothes, carrying a notebook. The facility director, a woman named Patricia Coleman, had been briefed on his situation. "You're here to help," she told him firmly. "That means doing whatever is needed. Folding towels, setting up equipment, supporting patients during exercises, cleaning up afterwards. Nothing is beneath you. Everyone here is working hard to recover from injuries or illnesses. You will treat each of them with respect and dignity. Understood?" Quote, "Yes, ma'am." Understood. His first day was awkward and painful. He saw Mrs. Morrison going through grueling physical therapy exercises, her face contorted in pain as she tried to put weight on her healing leg. When she saw him watching, she didn't look away or glare. She just nodded once in acknowledgement. At the end of the session, she wheeled herself over to where he was folding towels. "Drop a comment about whether you could forgive someone who hurt you this badly." Marcus, right? Quote, "Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry. I know I already said that in court, but seeing you here, seeing how hard you're working because of what I did, I just—" "Stop," she said gently but firmly. "If you're going to apologize to me every time you see me, we're going to have a problem. You apologized. I heard you. I believe you. Now what I need from you is action, not more words. Help these people. Do your work. Become someone who helps heal instead of hurts. That's the apology I need." Marcus nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. "Yes, ma'am. I will." Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into his volunteer work with an intensity that surprised everyone. He arrived early and stayed late. He learned the names of every patient. He remembered details about their lives, their families, their goals. He celebrated their small victories and encouraged them through their setbacks. One day, he was helping an elderly man named Robert, who'd had a stroke practice walking with a walker. Robert was frustrated, angry at his body's betrayal, wanting to give up. "I used to run marathons," Robert said bitterly. "Now I can't walk 10 feet without wanting to collapse." Marcus thought about his own experience, about that day in the courtroom, about the long road ahead. "Mr. Robert, can I tell you something?" Quote, "What's that, son?" Quote, 3 months ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I hurt people. I almost destroyed everything. And there were a lot of moments since then where I wanted to give up, where I thought about how much easier it would be to just quit. But there's this judge, Judge Caprio, who believed I was more than my worst moment. And there's this lady, Mrs. Morrison, who I hurt really bad, And she keeps showing up to therapy every day, even though it hurts. If she can keep fighting, I can keep trying. And if you used to run marathons, that means you know how to work hard. You know how to push through pain. You've done harder things than walking with a walker. Hit the subscribe button if this is the kind of content that restores your faith in humanity. Robert looked at the young man helping support him and smiled slightly. You're right, son. You're absolutely right. Let's try again. Meanwhile, Marcus was excelling in school. His teachers noticed the change in him immediately. He was focused, dedicated, almost obsessive about his grades. He stayed after school for help. He joined a peer tutoring program to help other students with math, which had always been his strongest subject. His English teacher, Mr. Phillips, pulled him aside one day. Marcus, I've been teaching for 22 years. I've never seen a turnaround like yours. What happened to you? Quote. Marcus didn't hesitate. I almost ruined my life, Mr. Phillips. Judge Caprio gave me a chance not to. I'm not going to waste it. Quote. The court case, Mr. Phillips said, understanding dawning. I heard about it. A lot of us teachers heard about it. We've been watching you, wondering if you'd step up or fall apart. Which one do you think I'm doing? Quote. Stepping up, Mr. Phillips said with certainty. Definitely stepping up. In fact, I have a proposition for you. We have an assembly coming up about making good choices. Would you be willing to speak to the student body, tell your story? Quote. Marcus's first instinct was to say no. The idea of standing in front of hundreds of students, confessing his mistake, facing their judgment, terrified him. But he remembered Judge Caprio's condition. Speaking to other young people was part of his sentence, part of his redemption. Yes, sir, I'll do it. Quote. The assembly took place on a Wednesday morning in early December. The entire student body of Roosevelt Middle School, nearly 800 students, filed into the auditorium. Marcus stood backstage, his heart hammering so hard he thought he might pass out. His mother was in the audience. So was his little sister Destiny, who had been allowed to miss her elementary school classes for this. Like this video if you believe telling your story can change lives. Mr. Phillips introduced him. Students, today you're going to hear from one of your own. Marcus Henderson is an 8th grader here at Roosevelt. A few months ago, Marcus made a choice that changed his life and the lives of several other people. He's here today to share that experience with you, not because he has to, but because he wants to help you avoid making similar mistakes. Let's give Marcus our attention and respect. The applause was polite, but uncertain. Marcus walked onto the stage on shaky legs. He looked out at hundreds of faces, some curious, some bored, some already whispering to friends. He gripped the microphone with both hands. My name is Marcus Henderson. 3 months ago, I almost killed 3 people, including an 8-year-old boy. I'm here to tell you how that happened and why it matters to every single person in this room. The whispers stopped. He had their attention. On September 15th, my little sister had a really bad asthma attack. Destiny is 7 years old. She's sitting right there in the 3rd row with my mama. Hey, Des. His sister waved shyly. Some students smiled. When Destiny couldn't breathe, when she was turning blue, I panicked. The ambulance was coming, but it felt like it would take forever. I thought my sister might die. So I made a choice. I grabbed my mama's car keys, and even though I'm 13 years old and have never driven before and didn't have a license, I got in that car and I drove. You could hear a pin drop in the auditorium now, Marcus continued, his voice getting stronger. I was trying to be a hero. I was trying to save my sister. In my head, I was making a noble sacrifice, taking a risk to save someone I love. But you know what I really was? I was a 13-year-old kid who didn't know how to drive, going 60 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood, running red lights, completely out of control. He paused, swallowing hard. I hit a woman's car. Her name is Janet Morrison. I shattered her femur. That's the biggest bone in your leg. She had to have surgery twice. She might walk with a limp for the rest of her life. Her daughter Emily was in the car too. She got a traumatic brain injury. She still has trouble remembering things. Share this video with every parent and teacher you know. After I hit their car, my car kept going. And I hit a little boy named Christopher Davis. He's 8 years old. I broke his arm and 3 of his ribs. He spent 6 days in the hospital. He has nightmares now about cars. Several students were crying now. Marcus saw his mother in the audience with tears streaming down her face. I stood in front of Judge Caprio expecting to go to juvenile detention. I deserved it. I hurt people. But those 3 people I hurt, Mrs. Morrison and Emily and Christopher and his grandmother, they stood up in that courtroom and they forgave me. They asked the judge to give me a second chance. His voice cracked. Mrs. Morrison told Judge Caprio that she has a son my age. She said if her son thought his little sister was dying, she didn't know what he would do either. Emily told the judge that she just got her license and she almost hit a car last week because she was changing the radio. She said at least I was trying to save someone, not just being careless. And Christopher's grandma, she told the judge that desperation makes people do things they'd never normally do. Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Judge Caprio didn't send me to detention. He gave me probation, community service, a bunch of other conditions. But the hardest thing he gave me was a chance. A chance to prove I'm more than the worst thing I've ever done. A chance to become someone who helps people instead of hurts them. He looked directly at the students. Here's why I'm telling you this. Some of you in this room are going to face situations where you have to make a split-second decision, where someone you love is in danger or in trouble, where it feels like you have to do something right now, or something terrible will happen. And in that moment, you're going to have a choice. Drop a comment right now about a time you had to make a difficult choice. You can panic and act without thinking, like I did. Or you can take a breath, even just 3 seconds, and think about consequences. Call for help. Wait for adults. Trust the systems in place, even when they feel slow. Because I'm telling you right now, from experience, no matter how urgent it feels in the moment, making a dangerous choice will not make things better. It will only create more victims, more pain, more people who need healing. He paused, looking out at all those young faces. I'm one of the lucky ones. My victims forgave me. Judge Caprio believed in me. I get to stand here and tell you this story instead of sitting in a cell somewhere. But that doesn't erase what I did. I think about Mrs. Morrison every single day. I volunteer at her physical therapy center. I watch her work so hard just to walk again because of me. I think about Emily and her memory problems. I think about Christopher being afraid of cars. I will carry this weight for the rest of my life. His voice dropped lower, more intense. Don't carry that weight. Don't make the choices I made. When you're scared, ask for help. When you're desperate, take 3 seconds to think. When you want to be a hero, remember that real heroes don't create more victims. They protect people, including protecting people from their own panic and bad choices. The auditorium was completely silent. Even the teachers in the back were motionless, hanging on every word. I'm going to end with this. My little sister Destiny, the one I was trying to save that day, she doesn't understand everything that happened. But she knows I hurt people. And you know what she asked me last week? She asked me if it was her fault, if people got hurt because of her asthma attack. Marcus's voice broke completely. Several seconds passed before he could continue. I told her no. I told her it was my fault because I made bad choices. But you know what? If I had waited for the ambulance like I was supposed to, Destiny would have been fine, and 3 other people wouldn't be hurt. The doctors told my mama that Destiny was never in real danger. She would have been okay. I almost killed people for nothing. Because I panicked. Because I didn't think. Because I didn't trust the grown-ups and the systems and the people who actually knew what they were doing. Quote, he looked directly at his sister in the audience. Des, you didn't do anything wrong. I did, and I'm spending every day trying to make it right. Subscribe to this channel if you believe young people sharing their stories can change the world. Thank you for listening to me. If any of you want to talk more about this, about making good choices or dealing with consequences or anything, Mr. Phillips says I can make myself available. I'm not a hero. I'm not special. I'm just a kid who made a terrible mistake and got a second chance. Learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make your own. The applause started slowly, then built to a crescendo. Students stood up. Teachers stood up. Marcus's mother was sobbing in the audience. His sister Destiny was clapping so hard her hands had to hurt. Marcus walked off the stage feeling lighter than he had in months. He'd told his story. He'd been honest. He'd tried to help others avoid his path. It felt like purpose. But the most profound moment was yet to come. The monthly meeting with his victims that Judge Caprio had mandated was approaching. And what happened in that meeting would prove that justice and mercy aren't opposites. They're partners in the work of making broken things whole again. The meeting took place at a community center conference room on a Tuesday evening in mid-December. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early with his mother. His hands were sweating. His stomach churned. Even though he'd been seeing Mrs. Morrison at the rehab center, this was different. This was a formal accountability meeting. All 3 victims would be there. They would have questions. They deserved answers. Janet Morrison arrived in her wheelchair, though Marcus noticed immediately that she was putting more weight on her healing leg. Emily pushed her mother's chair. They were followed by Mrs. Davis and Christopher, who no longer wore a sling. His arm had healed, though Mrs. Davis had mentioned that he still had occasional pain, and probably always would. A mediator named Dr. Lisa Frank facilitated the meeting. She was a restorative justice specialist who volunteered her time for cases like these, where victims and offenders wanted to engage in dialogue beyond the courtroom. Like this video if you believe face-to-face accountability matters. Thank you all for being here, Dr. Frank began. This is a safe space for honesty. Marcus, the people here today have questions for you, thoughts to share with you, and they deserve your full attention and truthful responses. Everyone else, Marcus is here to listen and to answer. He's also working hard to make amends. This is a dialogue, not an attack. Are we all clear on that? Quote. Everyone nodded. Janet Morrison went first. Marcus, I want to start by telling you something positive. The physical therapist at the center, Patricia, told me about the work you've been doing there. She says you're the most dedicated volunteer they've had in years. She says patients ask for you specifically because you remember things about them and encourage them. Marcus looked surprised. Thank you, ma'am. I just try to help, however I can. I know you do. I've seen it myself. But here's what I need to know from you. Do you understand that my life will never be the same? That even when my leg heals completely, even when I can walk without pain, I will always have the scars from the surgery. I will always remember the sound of your car hitting mine. I will always have that moment of terror. Do you understand that some consequences are permanent? Quote. Marcus nodded, tears already forming. Yes, ma'am, I understand. I know I can't ever fix what I broke. I can't give you back what you had before. All I can do is try to give something else. Try to be someone who adds good to the world to balance out the harm I caused. That's all I needed to hear, Janet said softly. That you know, that you remember, that you're not minimizing it. Quote. Emily spoke next. Marcus, I need to tell you something. My grades have dropped because of my memory issues. I used to be an honors student. Now I'm barely passing some classes. I want to go to college someday, and I don't know if my brain will work well enough to do that. That's because of you, because of your choice. Share this with someone who works in restorative justice. Marcus was crying openly now. Emily, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? Could I tutor you, help you study? I'm really good at math and science. I know that doesn't fix anything, but if there's any way I could help instead of just saying sorry. Emily looked surprised. You'd do that? Tutor me? Quote. Yes, absolutely. As much as you want. I'll work around your schedule. I'll do whatever helps. Dr. Frank interjected. Emily, if you want to take Marcus up on that offer, we can arrange it through official channels with parental consent and supervision. Marcus is already volunteering at the rehab center, so adding structured tutoring sessions wouldn't violate any terms of his probation. Emily looked at her mother, who nodded. Okay, yeah, I'd like that. I need help with algebra specifically. I love algebra, Marcus said, almost smiling through his tears. I can definitely help with that. Mrs. Davis was next. Her weathered face was serious, but not unkind. Marcus, I told you in that courtroom that I forgave you. I meant it. But Christopher here has something he wants to tell you himself. Christopher, go ahead, baby. The 8-year-old looked tiny in his chair. He spoke in a quiet voice that made everyone lean forward to hear. Marcus, I wanted to ask you if you hate yourself. The question landed like a bomb in the quiet room. Dr. Frank looked concerned but didn't interrupt. Marcus bent forward. elbows on his knees, looking directly at Christopher. "Yeah, little man, sometimes I do hate myself. When I see your grandma here, or when I see Mrs. Morrison working so hard at therapy, or when I remember what you looked like on the ground that day, I hate what I did so much that I hate myself." Quote, "Drop a comment about how you deal with guilt and regret. My mama is in prison," Christopher said, seeming to change the subject. "She's there because she made a bad choice too. She was trying to help Grandma, just like you were trying to help your sister. My teacher says that people aren't just the worst thing they ever did. She says people are complicated. Are you complicated, Marcus?" Quote. Marcus smiled slightly through his tears. "Yeah, Christopher, I think I am. I did a really bad thing, the worst thing I'll probably ever do in my whole life. But I'm also trying to do good things now. Does that make sense?" Quote. "Yeah, my mama says that too in her letters. She says she's doing good things in prison, helping other people, and learning stuff. Maybe when she gets out, she can be good like you're trying to be good." "I hope so, little man. I really hope so." Christopher stood up and walked around the table. Before anyone could stop him, he approached Marcus and held out his hand. Marcus stared at it in disbelief, then gently shook the small hand. "I forgive you too," Christopher said. "Grandma says holding on to being mad just makes you feel bad." "I don't want to feel bad anymore. My arm is almost better. I'm going to be okay. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe right now, because this is the humanity we need more of in this world." Marcus couldn't speak. He just held the little boy's hand and cried. Janet Morrison was crying too. So was Emily, Mrs. Davis, Dr. Frank, and Marcus's mother in the corner. That conference room held more healing in that moment than 1,000 court proceedings could ever produce. The meeting lasted another hour. They talked about practical matters, the tutoring schedule for Emily, the volunteer hours Marcus was completing, his improved grades at school. They talked about the letters he'd written, which all 3 victims said had been meaningful and specific and real. They talked about his school assembly speech, which had been recorded and was being shown to other schools in the district. But the most important things had already been said. Accountability had been established. Consequences had been acknowledged. Forgiveness had been offered. And a path forward had been illuminated that allowed everyone in that room to heal together rather than remain locked in victim and offender roles forever. As they were leaving, Janet Morrison pulled Marcus aside. "I need to tell you something that I didn't want to say in front of everyone." Marcus's heart raced. "Yes, ma'am." Quote, "My son Marcus, the one I mentioned in court, he was failing 3 classes and getting into fights. I told him about you, about your case, about how you turned your life around. And you know what? His grades have improved. He's stopped fighting. He asked me if he could meet you sometime." Marcus looked shocked. "Really? He wants to meet me?" Quote, "He does. He says if you can turn things around, after almost going to juvenile detention, he can turn things around before he gets in real trouble. You're helping more people than you know, Marcus. Your accountability and your hard work, they matter. They ripple out. Remember that." Like this video if you believe one person's transformation can inspire others. 6 months passed. Marcus completed his defensive driving course at the top of his class. He maintained a 3.8 GPA. He exceeded his required volunteer hours at the rehab center by over 100 hours because he genuinely loved the work. He tutored Emily twice a week, and her grades improved dramatically. He became friends with Janet Morrison's son, the other Marcus, and the 2 teenagers studied together and kept each other accountable. He spoke at 14 different schools about his experience, reaching over 6,000 students with his message about making better choices in moments of crisis. 3 teachers told him that students had specifically cited his speech when explaining why they didn't do something dangerous they'd been considering. Judge Caprio requested a progress report at the 6-month mark. Marcus and his mother returned to the courtroom, along with Ms. Chen, his public defender. The victims came too, though this wasn't required. Judge Caprio reviewed the documentation of everything Marcus had accomplished. The volunteer hours, the grades, the speaking engagements. The letters from Patricia Coleman at the rehab center praising his work ethic and compassion. The report from Emily about how his tutoring had helped her grades improve from D's and F's to B's and C's. A letter from Roosevelt Middle School's principal about the positive impact of his assembly speech. Marcus Henderson. Judge Caprio said with unmistakable pride in his voice, "You have exceeded every expectation I had when I sentenced you 6 months ago. You have demonstrated that second chances are not wasted on people who genuinely want to change." Marcus stood tall, no longer the trembling, terrified child from 6 months earlier. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for believing in me when you had every reason not to. What are your plans for the future, son?" Quote, "Share this video because this ending will give you hope. Your Honor, I've been thinking a lot about that. Seeing Mrs. Morrison's physical therapy, seeing how hard people work to recover from injuries, it made me interested in medicine. I think I want to be a doctor. Specifically, I think I want to work in emergency medicine, helping people in crisis situations. Maybe helping families who are panicking, like my family was panicking that day." Judge Caprio smiled. "That's a worthy goal. You have the grades for it. You have the compassion for it. And you certainly understand the importance of staying calm in emergencies better than most people ever will. I also want to keep speaking to kids," Marcus added. "Even after my probation is done, Mr. Phillips at my school says I'm good at it. He says I connect with students because I'm real with them. I want to keep doing that. I want my mistake to mean something, to save other people from making similar mistakes." "Then you will do exactly that," Judge Caprio said. "This court has seen many young people over the years. Some take responsibility and change. Others blame everyone else and remain stuck. You chose the harder path, Marcus. You chose accountability, hard work, and genuine transformation. I want you to remember something." Marcus listened intently. "You will carry what happened on September 15th with you for the rest of your life. That weight will never completely go away. But you get to choose what you do with that weight. You can let it crush you, or you can let it strengthen you. You can let it define you as a perpetrator, or you can let it refine you into someone who dedicates his life to helping others. Based on what I've seen over these past 6 months, you're choosing the latter. Keep choosing it, every single day, for the rest of your life." Drop a final comment telling us what this story taught you about justice, mercy, and second chances. "I will, Your Honor. I promise." Judge Caprio stood and walked around the bench again, something that still surprised people every time he did it. He approached Marcus and extended his hand. The young man shook it firmly, looking the judge directly in the eyes. "I'm proud of you, son," Judge Caprio said simply. Those 5 words broke Marcus completely. He sobbed, and the judge pulled him into a brief hug, patting his back. "You're going to be fine. You're going to be more than fine. You're going to be extraordinary." Janet Morrison wheeled herself forward. She was walking now with just a cane for support, her recovery ahead of schedule. "Your Honor, may I say something?" Quote, "Always, Mrs. Morrison." Quote, "This process, this restorative justice approach you facilitated, it didn't just help Marcus, it helped me too, it helped all of us. Instead of just being a victim of a terrible accident, I got to participate in someone's redemption. I got to see accountability in action. I got to forgive face to face and watch that forgiveness transform a young life. That's powerful. That's healing for everyone involved." She looked at Marcus. "I need to tell you something. My leg is healing better than the doctors expected. They think I'll make a full recovery. No permanent limp. No chronic pain. I won the lottery in terms of healing. But even if I hadn't, even if my leg never worked right again, I would still say that forgiving you was the right choice. Because I've watched you become someone extraordinary over these past 6 months. I've watched you help my son become better. I've watched you inspire students at schools across the city. That doesn't erase what happened, but it transforms it into something meaningful." Quote, "Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss stories like this that prove humanity is still worth believing in." Emily stepped forward too. "Marcus, I got my report card yesterday. All B's. First time since the accident. You helped me do that. Your tutoring made the difference. My mom says my memory is improving too. The doctors think my brain is healing better than they expected. Everything's going to be okay." Christopher ran forward and hugged Marcus around the waist. "I'm not scared of cars anymore. And guess what? I got a new bike. It's red. Want to come to the park sometime and watch me ride it?" Quote, Marcus picked up the little boy and hugged him tight. "I would love that, little man. I would absolutely love that." Mrs. Davis approached last. "Young man, my daughter is getting out of prison in 3 months. She's served her time. When she gets home, I want her to meet you. I want her to see what taking responsibility and doing the work looks like. I want her to know that her son Christopher was hurt, but that good came from it because you chose to turn your life around. Will you meet with her?" Quote, "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I'll meet with her whenever you want." Judge Caprio watched all of this with deep satisfaction. This was why he'd become a judge. Not to punish, though punishment had its place. Not to show mercy without accountability, which helped no one. But to facilitate justice that recognized the full humanity of everyone involved. Justice that created space for accountability, consequences, forgiveness, and transformation all at once. "Marcus," the judge said one final time, "you came into my courtroom 6 months ago as a terrified child who'd made a catastrophic mistake. You're leaving today as a young man who understands responsibility, who values human life, who works hard to make amends, and who uses his experience to help others. That transformation is what justice should look like. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for proving that people can change. Thank you for being an example of what second chances can accomplish when someone is truly committed." The gavel came down one last time. This progress review is concluded. Keep up the excellent work, son. I'll see you at your 1-year check-in. Hit that like button, share this video with everyone you know, and drop a comment about whether we need more judges like Frank Caprio in our justice system. As Marcus left the courtroom that day with his mother, his victims turned friends, and his public defender who'd fought so hard for him, he felt something he hadn't felt in 6 months. He felt light, not because his burden was gone, it would never be completely gone, but because he was carrying it with purpose. He was using his worst moment to create better moments for others. That night, Marcus sat down and wrote in the journal his therapist had recommended he keep. He wrote about the day in court, about Judge Caprio's pride, about Janet Morrison's full recovery prognosis, about Emily's improved grades, about Christopher's new bike and lack of fear, about Mrs. Davis's daughter coming home soon. And then he wrote, "I thought September 15th was the day that would define my life forever. The day I almost killed 3 people. The day I ruined everything. But maybe it's not. Maybe the day that defines my life is today. The day I realized that accountability and hard work and genuine change can transform even the worst mistakes into something meaningful. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure that my choice that day, as terrible as it was, leads to something good. I can make sure that other kids don't make the same choice. I can make sure I spend my whole life helping people instead of hurting them. That's what Judge Caprio gave me the chance to do. That's what Mrs. Morrison and Emily and Christopher and Mrs. Davis gave me through their forgiveness. I won't waste it. I promise." 2 years later, Marcus Henderson graduated from high school with a 4.0 GPA as the class valedictorian. He'd been accepted to Brown University on a full scholarship. He planned to major in pre-med with a focus on emergency medicine. He'd completed over 200 volunteer hours at the rehabilitation center, more than twice what was required. He'd spoken at 73 schools, reaching over 30,000 students. He'd continued tutoring Emily Morrison throughout high school, and she'd been accepted to Rhode Island School of Design to study graphic design. He'd maintained his friendship with Janet Morrison's son, Marcus, who'd also turned his life around and was headed to community college to study automotive technology. Share this video one more time because stories of real transformation need to be heard. At his graduation ceremony, Marcus gave the valedictorian speech. He talked about mistakes and consequences, about accountability and second chances, about justice and mercy working together. He talked about Judge Frank Caprio, who'd shown him what it meant to see the full humanity in everyone, even a terrified 13-year-old who'd almost killed 3 people. Judge Caprio was in the audience that day. So were Janet Morrison and Emily, Christopher Davis and his grandmother, and dozens of students who'd heard Marcus speak at their schools over the years. When Marcus finished his speech, The entire auditorium stood and applauded for 5 full minutes. After the ceremony, Judge Caprio approached Marcus one final time. "Dr. Henderson has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Quote. Marcus laughed, tears streaming down his face. "I'm not a doctor yet, Your Honor." "You will be. And you'll be an exceptional one because you understand something most doctors never learn. You understand that people are more than their worst moments. That healing takes time and work and compassion. That everyone deserves to be seen as fully human, even when they've done terrible things. You taught me that, Your Honor, you and Mrs. Morrison and all of them. You taught me that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about making things as right as they can be made, even when nothing can ever be completely fixed." Judge Caprio smiled. "You're going to change lives, Marcus. You already have. Keep doing it." Quote. If you made it to the end of this video, drop a comment right now with the word hope, so we know this story touched you the way it touched everyone in that courtroom. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that prove justice, mercy, and transformation are possible when people choose compassion over punishment, accountability over excuses, and hard work over giving up. Share this video everywhere because people need to see that mistakes, even terrible ones, don't have to be the end of someone's story. They can be the beginning of something extraordinary. And remember, you are more than your worst moment. Everyone is. That's not just a nice sentiment. It's the truth that transformed a 13-year-old boy who almost killed 3 people into a young man who will spend his life saving lives instead. If Marcus Henderson can do it, any of us can. Choose accountability. Choose hard work. Choose transformation. Your second chance is waiting. Don't waste it.